Hello and welcome to The Tea. Today's tea is coming from the book of Daniel, chapter 3. Very interesting topic, extremely interesting, and very concerning. Here are the details. I will just give you a little disclosure. It's important that you read chapters 1 and 2 so you can be up to date on what's going on. All right? If you haven't read the story or not familiar with the story. Now, I'm only going to teach straight truth. The details are not my opinion. It is straight fact. Please fact check this word. That's why I'm telling you where it is. So it starts off like this. King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue 90 feet tall and 90 feet wide and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then he sent messages to the high officers and officials, officials, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the provincial officials to come to the dedication of the statue he had set up. So all these officials came and stood before the statue King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald shouted out, "People of all races and nations and languages, listen to the king's command. When you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and other musical instruments, bow to the ground to worship King Nebuchadnezzar's gold statue. Anyone who refuses to obey will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." So, at the sound of the musical instruments, all the people, whatever their race or nation or language, bowed to the ground and worshiped the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. But some of the astrologers went to the king and informed on the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "Long live the king. You issued a decree requiring all the people to bow down and worship the gold statue when they hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and other musical instruments. That decree also states that those who refuse to obey must be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you have put in charge of the province of Babylon. They pay no attention to you, your majesty. They refuse to serve your gods and do not worship the gold statue you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage and ordered that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought before him. When they were brought in, Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the gold statue I have set up? I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I have made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God will be able to rescue you from my power?" That's what he said. However, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you. Let's be clear. Your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up." Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage. He commanded that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Then he ordered some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So they tied them up and threw them into the furnace, fully dressed in their pants, turbans, robes, and other garments. And because the king, in his anger, had demanded such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames killed the soldiers that they threw. The flame killed the soldiers as they threw the 3 men in. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the roaring flames. But suddenly Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the furnace?" Yes, your majesty, we certainly did, they replied. Look, Nebuchadnezzar shouted. I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in the fire, unharmed, and the fourth looks like a god. Make it make sense. Fact check that. Fact check that. So it says, then Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. Then the high officers, officials, governors, and advisors crowded around them and saw that the fire had not touched them. Not a hair on their heads was singed, and their clothing was not scorched. They didn't even smell of smoke. Make it make sense. Fact check that. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel to rescue his servants who trusted in him. They defied the king's command and were willing to die rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I make this decree. If any people, whatever their race or nation or language, speak a word against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they will be torn limb from limb, and their houses will be turned into heaps of rubble. There is no other God who can rescue like this. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to even higher positions in the province of Babylon. That's powerful. That is powerful. They weren't just facing the fire, they were thrown into the fire. And they came out unsinged because the God that they served was with them. That's powerful. Awesome. But you see who did get burned, right? You saw who did, right? It was not even the ones that were in the fire. It was the ones that were close to the fire. They're the ones who got burned. They're the ones who were responsible for throwing the men in the fire. The ones that threw them in got burned. The ones who were thrown in were not burned. Make it make sense. Fact check that. Daniel chapter 3. This is some fierce stuff. You cannot make this stuff up. It was written so long ago. You can't add to it, you can't take away. It speaks for itself. I'm just the narrator. I'm just the commentator. I'm not trying to add or take away anything from this well-written, spoken truth, spoken word, his spoken word, okay? Now, digest it, all right? Selah, think on that. Application, what does that look like? You can take something away from this, and you can truly understand how this can impact you, all right? So that was then, this is now. The same God then is the same God now. He said he never changes. He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, all right? So he sent his son Jesus, all right, who went into the fire, but he came out. The fire he went through was on the cross, right? He went through that fire, but he was not consumed because he rose again, all right? And he's ready to return. But he told those that follow him, there would be some situations that every follower will go through, okay? But he promised to be with us, all right? And one thing Matthew left us with, as we stand firm on the return of Jesus, he said, he that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. Okay? Now, I know I jumped from Daniel to Matthew, gave you a little bit of tea in that, However, it's very relevant. Read this. When you find yourself going through a situation and you know you're standing on business, on biblical business, which is truth that cannot be disputed, understand that you are not the first one. Understand that there were those before you, okay, who have the written testimonies to help you understand that they went through it and they came out, okay? They went through it and they came out. They were in it, but they were not consumed, all right? Understand that when you feel pressure, okay, to do certain things that are of this world, and you know the Spirit of the living God within you told you not to. Now I'm speaking to those who are already in faith and got the understanding. Those who are not in faith may not understand this principle that I'm speaking on. Okay, so I may not be talking to you, but I'm talking to somebody who is understanding this story right here, who may have had an experience. Maybe it was your job, maybe it was your friendship, maybe it was your family. Okay, fire is fire. Whatever the circumstances, whatever the negative situation is, okay, that is the fire I'm referring to. Now, situations are common to people, okay? Because 1 Corinthians told us this. 1 Corinthians 10 and 13 told us this. But God is faithful. He always makes a way of escape, all right? Question is, where do you stand? Are you one with it or are you against it, all right? So it is so important that you know whose side you're really on, because when you're in a situation, you face with it, you can't have a respected person. You can't be biased in your decision. Okay, if it's not okay yesterday, it's not okay today, and it's not going to be okay tomorrow, regardless of the one that is actually encouraging you to do the thing that you know, the thing that you should not do, that you and God know exactly what that thing is. Don't get distracted. Stay focused, okay? Jesus is coming, and very soon. We're in the season. We have the signs right in our face. He told us what it would look like. This is real tea, okay? What I share with you is the real tea. And until the next time you sit with me, stay focused and enjoy your tea.